And welcome to another adventure of Riding Through the Unknown. I'm your host, Michael, and tonight I have a guest with you all I have been so excited to talk with, and we were having a fun conversation before we got started, so you all are in for an amazing treat tonight. And so I could spend a long time sharing her background and everything, but I'll let her have the joy of sharing her background. So I'm going to turn it over to my amazing guest, the one, the only, super connected, Dr. Lisa Thompson.
Thank you, Michael. It's so great to be here with you today and your audience. And so there is so much, but one of the reasons why I was excited to come onto your show is I love sharing my story about being a lifelong contactee experiencer of ET UFO phenomena. And I grew up a little bit different. I grew up in a metaphysical spiritual household where I was exposed to things outside of this reality at a very young age. And that really got me to the point of where I am now as a Galactic Ambassador and channeler. So I am a multiple best-selling author. I do a night sky watch UFO tour here in my home state of Hawaii on the Big Island. And there's so much more that I could share. I'm a multidimensional awakening coach. So I help people tap into their multidimensional selves, which really helps bring forth their talent, skills, and abilities from other lives, parallel lives. And I am also a trained past parallel life regression therapist. And I've had my own regressions done with some very interesting outcomes, which I'm happy to share with you on the show too.
Very cool. And, you know, as much as we were talking about having those couple of things in common beforehand, I was actually brought up by choice in the metaphysical as well. So that's kind of funny how we have things in common. And so my first kind of question that I think is probably on a lot of people's mind is, you know, talking about being like a galactic ambassador. What does that look like and how does that work?
Well, if you had asked me, when I was younger and even just realizing I'm having these ET experiences, if I would ever be sharing my stories publicly, I would say no way, because this was back in the 80s where I was having these conscious memories as a teenager. And, you know, back then people thought you were crazy if you talked about ETs and UFOs. And so just to give you a little bit more background on my windy career path and how I ended up in this position. So I started my career with a PhD in evolutionary biology, marine biology, zoology. I was obsessed with animals growing up. But even when I was in graduate school, I would share with some of my grad student friends my experiences and my belief in things like Sasquatch, dragons, merpeople. They all thought I was crazy. So I learned, okay, I better keep my mouth shut to be taken seriously in my academic career. I was a professor for a couple of years, but that ended up not being a good fit. It was way too in the box, too confining, and I knew so much more than what I was able to share and teach about. So left academia, windy career path in mortgage industry for 5 years, and then I had an interior design home staging business for 12 years. And 8 years ago, I started my spiritual business. But it wasn't until 5 years ago when I moved here to Hawaii from Washington State that I came out of the proverbial closet. I did back in October of 2018 meet my Arcturian family, including my Arcturian self. That's a whole story. But it wasn't until I got here to Hawaii in December of 2020. So again, I'm coming up on 5 years, where I decided there was so much activity going on, UFO activity here on the island. I'm on the big island of Hawaii. And I would see all of these craft popping out. And so I decided to start a UFO tour business under my spiritual business. And so then, because I was doing this tour, I was sharing my personal experiences as well as information about the phenomena. And then I ended up writing my first book on this topic, Connection to the Cosmos, Remembering Your Galactic Heritage and Embracing Your Oneness. And during the writing of that book, my Arcturians wanted to start channeling through me. Now, I grew up in a spiritual school of enlightenment where the teacher was actually a channeled ascended master. And so I never thought I would channel, that I would let that energy come through me in any way, because again, that was kind of weird back in the 80s, 90s, and moving forward to most people. And again, I tried my whole life to be normal and fit in. But when I got here, I'm like, okay, I don't need to fit in anymore. I get to be my full authentic self. So during the writing, I started channeling, and my team, my galactic team, told me that I needed to start calling myself a Galactic Ambassador, because I was here to be a bridge of information from them and their realm to us as humans here in humanity, as we're in this really critical time in Earth's time period where there are multiple timelines going on, and people are going to have to choose, consciously or unconsciously, if they are going to shift to that higher vibrational reality of fifth dimension, or if they're going to stay back in the fear polarized third dimension reality.
Yeah, and I love how you mentioned having a team, because you're like the second person that I've met in the spiritual world that refers to it as a team, and I just love that, because it makes it sound better than, oh, I talked to this person and that person, and I can't give you their name, and so it's like, okay, and I understand that. So I love how, using the word team, it's like everyone's like, oh, really cool. And I'm curious, because as starseeds go, I've always heard of, being the starseed connected to this family and this star nation or star beings tribe. But I've never heard anyone until you say they met themselves.
Okay.
So I totally want to hear this story.
Okay. So if I can start from the beginning of when I was 15 and then progress to the Arcturian thing, because they are related to each other. So when I was 15, I had my first conscious memory of being taken onto a craft. It was a nighttime experience. I was asleep, so I don't know how I got into the craft, but I wake up and I'm inside this spaceship. And it was a smaller shuttlecraft, just me and my ET guide. And I didn't have any fear whatsoever, because number one, he looked human. And number two, I felt like I knew him, like he was my friend. So we start flying through space, and when we landed where we were going, I asked him where we were. He said that we were inside of Io, one of Jupiter's moons. And then he started touring me around what looked like a hospital facility where I could see into different rooms. People were being examined, but nothing scary. And so then my next question, everyone looked human. So my next question to him was, are you human? Is everyone here human? He said, no, those of you that we have brought here are human. We are not. We are humanoid, but our form tends to scare you, so we disguise ourselves. So then my next question to him was, well, why are we here? Why am I here? And he said, those of us that had been chosen to be brought there were being tested to see if something happened to Earth, if we could live in an environment like that or something similar. Now, this is back in 1988, where we're still in the Cold War, on the verge of World War III. So there really was a timeline where something could have happened. And then at the end of the tour, I asked him if I could see what he really looked like. Because, again, as a kid, obsessed with animals, and the weirder, the better. So when he showed me what he looked like, he was about 7 feet tall. He had pure white skin, bigger dark eyes, and long red hair, like the red on your join now, like red. And then he also had triangles tattooed on his cheeks. So very extreme in his size and coloration, but completely benevolent. So then I get returned back home, and I just remember laying on my bed, like, okay, that is the weirdest dream I've ever had. And that's what I thought for a few months. Like, okay, weird dream. So I didn't tell anyone about it because my 15-year-old mind just thought dream. So a few months later, I was reading Whitley Strieber's book, Communion. And for those in the audience who don't know what that book is about, it's his experiences in the 80s of being taken by gray ETs. His experience is very different than mine, but at the end of his book, he's interviewing different people that have been taken, and they all have the same kind of gray experience he's having, except for one guy had a completely different story, where he was telling Whitley that he had been taken to a moon of Jupiter and told he was one of the chosen ones. Whitley makes a little side comment that I interpreted sarcastically. I hope it isn't Io. And when I read that, full head to toe body chills, tears started coming down my face. And so that was my body's way of telling me that was a real experience. So at the time, my mom and I were part of that spiritual school of enlightenment. And we had been learning about things outside of 3D reality. So I knew if I told her, she would believe me. So she did. She got very excited. And a few days later, she introduced me to another student at our school who had formerly been very high government, who knew about the different ET races that our government knows about and even works with. So I shared the story and got to the part of describing them. And he was like, I don't know that race. He said, but we don't know all of them. There are so many out there. But he said, you had a real experience. So not only did I have my own validation, but I had that external validation. So then we're going to fast forward to October of 2018. I was taking a psychic intuition class for several months, but on that first night of class, the teacher led us through a meditative journey to meet a spirit guide that would help us get extra information. And I had already been trained as a regression therapist, had done a lot of spirit guide, journeys, met humans and animals. But this time was totally different, where I went to a different realm, and in front of me were the most beautiful blue-skinned beings. Big, bald heads, skinny bodies, the most beautiful blue skin. And they exuded the most pure love I have ever felt, more so than anything here on Earth. And their message to me was, you are one of us, we are one of you, we are family. And then we were to ask if they had a name that they wanted to be called. And so even though there was a group of them, there was one that was to the front that was the spokesperson. And the name given to me was Uluru, like Ayers Rock, Uluru, in Australia. And I was also presented a gift of a quartz crystal. And I didn't know who they were as a group at that time, but came out of the journey and, everyone's sharing around class who their spirit guides are. I'm the only one with something non-human. But there happened to be a lady in class who knew some of the different ET races and what they look like. So when I was describing them to her, she was like, that sounds like either the Arcturians or the blue avians. And so I had to go home and Google what that was. And when I saw the images of the Arcturians, it's exactly what I had seen in this journey. And so that helped to validate that, okay, I really did experience that. But it took a few years. It took me actually, again, being here in Hawaii and fully stepping into my authentic self of sharing my experiences to understand like what had just happened, what I'd met. And so when I got here and started channeling, when they were like, you know, we really want you to channel our messages. And I took a channeling class, and in that class was when I realized, oh, this is me. Arcturian Uluru is me. And that made it so much easier to channel because I was just channeling an aspect of myself. But what's super interesting is that it also, in 2021, before I started the channeling, my light language got activated. And I had been working with a healer, and she did this process with me. And all of a sudden, after that, my light language fully came on. And so then when I realized, okay, I am this Arcturian, and I'm a healer in that realm, I knew that I was a healer. And so what I realized was that quartz crystal that I had been given represents the Arcturian healing energy that I send from that realm down to me as Earth Lisa for my own body to process that energy, but also for my healing clients and Mother Gaia. I also have a receiving crystal here that receives that energy more powerfully. And so when I realized, okay, that's just me. And then when I got used to running that higher frequency energy through my body for several months, the beginning of 2023, they were like, okay, it's time for you to bring in some of your other groups. And so over a period of a few months, I led 13 different sessions, channeling 13 different higher dimensional galactic races, including the Arcturians. And what I realized was all of those different ET races were also aspects of myself. And so being the regression therapist and knowing that we have infinite lives, parallel lives, because at the quantum level, all timelines exist simultaneously, in really trusting that, then I knew that I could tap in to these different lives and receive the information, wisdom from them that they wanted to share with humanity to elevate consciousness. And so to date, 13 groups have come through me. The Arcturians, though, are still my primary group. But in my healing sessions, the Sirians, so from Star Sirius, and then my mantis, the praying mantis beings, they also channel their healing energy through me. It's, again, I have aspects of them that I'm pulling forward. And so between the Arcturian, Sirians, and mantis, then they have given me what I call infinity healing method, which is this beautiful healing modality.
Yeah, and so I'm curious, and this was a great segue because I was hoping we would talk about your healing modality and what it is and how you had your awakening to it, if you don't mind.
Yeah, it was definitely a process because growing up, I never thought I wanted to heal people. My mother, she wanted me to be a doctor. I was always very sciencey. I was also very creative, though. But, since I went into biology, she's like, you should be a doctor. She wanted me to be a chiropractor or a naturopath or something like that. And I'm like, I love animals. I don't love people. And people hurt you. Animals don't. So
That's true.
I had a lot of lessons and issues to work through in my first many years of life up until roughly age 42. I'm turning 53 in a few months. But so when I ended up basically getting out of my second marriage, because I had back-to-back marriages that were pretty toxic. And I realized, okay, I'm the common denominator here. So let me clean up my own environment so that I don't recreate, this next toxic relationship. So using some of the techniques that I learned at my spiritual school, and then working with a coach and other healers, I really started doing deep dive clearing. And then I also then was called to get trained in my first modality, past life regression therapy. And again, I now call it parallel life regression. But really, when I started working with that and working with some of my cohorts in my certification program, that really was getting to the root cause of blockages and limitations, and learning how to work with that energy and shift it, how to rewire the brain. So that started it. But then when I moved here to Hawaii, my team told me, you need to learn sound healing. You need to add that in. And so I have all my crystal singing bowls, the chakra bowls, the 528 hertz, and some other instruments. So I started playing with sound in my sessions, and then that light language came on. And so then that got incorporated. And then when I fully realized that the Arcturian, Syrian, and Mantis energies were fully coming through me in transmissions and downloads, then in 2023, that's really when the Infinity Healing Method came fully online with all of the different components. And there's even more. Like every session is a little bit different with what clients need, but it's an amazing process to really heal emotional issues. It can heal physical issues too, but most physical issues stem from emotions, stuck trauma in the body, whether it's from this life or from parallel lives that is seeping into this earth life. And so it really was just kind of an evolution of how it came to be. But I'm super excited because starting at the end of October, I'm going to be having my first certification program and helping people access their own galactic energies. Other people, they may have other star beings like Pleiadians or Andromedans or some of the others that they are more connected to. And so I'm going to help them open that up so that they can channel these healing energy frequencies for their clients as well.
That's really cool, and thank you for doing that.
My pleasure. Again, I didn't think I would ever want to help people, but when I did that deep dive healing in myself, then I was like, oh, okay, hurt people. So if I can help people to heal themselves, then we can have a better earth.
Exactly. And one thing I'm curious about, if you thought about this in any way, is Hawaii, to me, is a island or land that's connected with the ETs. And by that, I mean they have stories of like the dolphin creation story that I feel like, the gods that they call them were ETs.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm wondering if your work and your connection is what drew you, do you think, to Hawaii to be in that energy?
Yeah, I was definitely called here. That's one of the sayings on the island, that especially the Big Island. She either calls you in or she will spit you out if you're not meant to be here. And so when I arrived here, we moved in the middle of COVID. So we had no reason to move, really. We were living pretty happily in Olympia, Washington. And when I say we, it was me, my third husband, Skip, and my kids. And so we were living, pretty happily in Olympia, except for my husband and I, we had a 10-year snowbird kind of plan because he would get seasonal depression. And in Washington, it's cloudy and rainy 9 months out of the year. So when COVID hit and everything went virtual, he was in the mortgage industry. And so his work went virtual and I could work anywhere in the world. And my daughter planted the seed in May of 2020 at the dinner table. She's like, I don't want to live here in Washington anymore. She's like, I want to move to California. I want to be a surfer girl, move to Malibu. And I immediately, my gut, I'm a sacral generator in my human design, another one of my modalities. But my gut was like, no, we're not moving to California. And so I was like, I would not move to California. The water's too cold. But then it came out of my mouth. I'd moved to Hawaii. And Skip looks at me and he's like, I'd moved to Hawaii. And we look at each other and we had a 2-year plan that got bumped up to 6 months later. We bought a house, sight unseen, pretty much just through video tour. And we had, a home inspection done, but we bought a house. And then a month later, then we ended up moving here. And so when I got here, like stepping off the airplane, and I had only been to the island one other time, and that was with my second husband for our honeymoon. And so when I got here to the island, I was like, oh, I felt immediately at home. And all the islands have very different energies. And so our island, because it still has the most active volcano in the world, it's very transmutative, that energy. It stirs stuff up. And so it's meant to reveal things that want to be healed. And again, that's why some people can hang with the energy and they're like, yeah, bring it on, let's clear more. And other people, they can't hang with that energy and they end up leaving the island, or unfortunately, in the case of my husband, so 2 years ago, we're coming up in a few days on 2-year anniversary where he committed suicide. And so what turned out to be, we thought seasonal depression, ended up not being seasonal. But fortunately, with my galactic team and all the healing modalities that I knew how to do, I was able to transmute that grief fairly quickly to then be able to talk about it and write about it. And actually my newest book is coming out November 2nd, about that whole grief healing process. And what it did was he was kind of a little hesitant for me to be sharing so much about the spiritual side of the ETs when he was alive. And so even though he fully supported me and loved me, he didn't understand that side. And so from the other side, he's come through many, many times to be like, I was holding you back. I couldn't help you and support you the way you needed to. You needed to be fully launched onto your mission here. And so that's kind of what the book is about as well. So it's called Through Loss into Light, a journey of grief, healing, and the love that remains.
Well, I'd like to take a moment to sidestep because it was in June of 2023 I lost my father. So I just want to say I feel, the loss, and my condolences to you for that loss. But also what a beautiful gift to get out of that loss.
Yeah. Well, and then, so that was September of 23 that he passed away. And then my mother passed February of 24. And then one of my cats passed March of 24. So it was like back to back to back. So it was a lot of processing. And, but again, because of what I know and understand about, this isn't just the one life that we live. We have infinite lifetimes. And the love never really ends. And even though the physical body might be gone, that connection is always there with all of our loved ones.
Very true. And that's something beautiful I hope that people remember is, we're not a one lifetime species, that we have many lifetimes already and many lifetimes to come. So there is no turning into dust and just nothingness for the future. There's something for everybody.
Yeah. Well, and even though I knew it kind of theoretically from growing up in that spiritual school of enlightenment. Really, when I got trained in regression therapy and was helping clients discover, some of their other lives here on Earth, non-Earth lives, non-human kind of lives. I had one client that was a 1,000-year-old tree. I had another client that was a dragonfly. So, we are all things, and that really, and then getting to see some of my own lives, especially my non-Earth lives, that really helped me embody this fully of like our multidimensional selves. And so earlier this year in January, I wrote another book. I write a lot of books. So I know you just had yours come out just recently, your first one, yay you. And you have more coming out. And so it's like, I never thought I would be a writer, but it's just like I have to keep sharing information. I'm here to be a teacher, and I just wasn't meant to teach biology to college students. And so, but yeah, my book, Awakening to Your Multidimensional Self, came out in January. And then the writing of that book allowed space for me to really start then teaching about that. And I had a mediumship session in May of this year. I've got a lot of psychic medium friends, but I had a very special mediumship reading where my husband Skip came through from the other side, and he very adamantly told me, finish the book. And she was like, do you know what he's talking about? I'm like, yeah, it's the book about him. So that's why I had to finish the book.
No, that's beautiful. And I'm curious with terminology, because you mentioned parallel lives and, multidimensional lives. The term past lives, do you view those as parallel lives or the multidimensional life, or?
Yes, parallel and multidimensional, because what we know at the quantum level, there really is no past, there is no future. Everything exists in the now. So if you think of like stacked paper, everything's existing. And it's just in this earth, very slow, dense reality. We somewhat experience linear time, but it's not real. It's just little blips. And when people say you can't change the past, maybe not well, actually, and I would disagree. You can change the past, because all timelines are existing simultaneously. And when you jump to other timelines, then those timelines have other paths that are different in some ways than what this current past reality is.
So when you're talking about jumping timelines, is this something like physically you're jumping, or you're going on the astral plane and working there?
It's we're constantly changing timelines just by making choices. So let's say I make a choice right now, I'm going to go left. Well, there's still one of me that's taking the right. So that's still existing. But because I've chosen to take the left, then that's a new timeline reality. And so it's really these micro choices that we're making, but we can make major shifts, especially. So my Arcturians are the ones who for the last 4.5 years have been channeling through me and telling me specifically as well, besides my clients, of you get to choose what timeline you want to be a part of. And it's all about what you put your attention on. We create our reality, right? Law of attraction, we create our reality. And we're either consciously creating it, or most people are unconsciously creating their reality. And so what they have shared through me and to me is that whatever you're holding your focus on, really holding that focus, and what environment, what vibration are you in, and what emotions are you experiencing, that creates your reality. That puts you in these different timelines. And so we're timeline jumping all the time, frequency wise. So it is both physical, but it's also energetic. And so like for me, moving here to Hawaii, why they put me here is number one, I needed the balance of the earth energy, the fire from the volcanoes, the water, the salt water, being surrounded by that to help balance me out. And I, you know, astrologically, I'm a Sagittarius, so I can definitely hang with the fire energy very well. But they put me here so that then I could create this beautiful environment for myself. They told me again 4.5 years ago, completely take myself out of politics. Do not watch the news and media. Don't buy into anything polarized. You observe it from a neutral, higher perspective. And since I have done that, my life has dramatically improved. My health has improved. I've reverse aged, like everything. And so really when you are curating your environment, so it's the people in your environment, it's what, the clutter or not clutter, it's the imagery that you're putting in, it's the sounds, the smells, everything is multidimensional. And that helps to create energetically whatever you're creating your reality to be. And that's what I help people do with that multidimensional self-work.
And what's interesting is when you mentioned being Sagittarius, I was listening, you're talking about being on point of this, and this. And Sagittarius is the archer who
Yes.
shoots everything on target. And so I was like, how perfect that you were born Sagittarius. Your life is unfolding on target and everything is moving on target. So you are literally the embodiment of the Sagittarius.
I am, but then I'm also a double Gemini, moon and ascendant. So for people who know astrology, you know what that means. So
yeah, I've tried to learn astrology, and it just goes in one ear out the other.
Yeah, my mom, up until I was 13, she was an astrologer in Oklahoma City. We have this whole Dallas, Oklahoma City connection. You and I, we were talking before the show. And so she was a practicing astrologer in Oklahoma City. And then we moved to Washington State to attend that spiritual school. But even though I love astrology, but I never wanted to really learn it in the way that she learned it. But I ended up doing human design instead, which has a component of astrology in it.
I'm trying to envision design with astrology, and I'm like, actually, it kind of does. I never thought about that.
Yeah, so human design as a modality combines astrology, the I Ching, the Hindu chakra system, Kabbalah tree of life, genetics, and quantum mechanics. So,
it's like the whole package.
I know, it's like all the yumminess. So one thing I know, I actually, if you're okay, if I steer the direction of where we're going to go next in terms of the conversation.
It's your episode. Steer away.
Okay, so before Skip passed, our last trip together, we used to travel once or twice a year out of the country. And our very last trip together in July of 23 was to Peru for 2 weeks. And we did what I called my ancient alien tour of Peru. And then after he passed, so last year, April of 24, I spent 2.5 weeks in Egypt doing what I call my ancient alien tour of Egypt. So what I wanted to experience was seeing these megalithic structures up close and personal, right? I'd seen them on the TV shows, Ancient Aliens and all that, but I wanted to see them in real life. And why is back in, I think it was 2021, I had a regression session done on me where I got to experience a life during the time of the building of the pyramids in Egypt. And so I wasn't a human. I was one of the ETs. And I was actually a Syrian genetic engineer. And so our group, we were up in our spacecraft. We were sending down sound frequency to upgrade the human DNA so that to modify it so that the humans could hold more consciousness and run more energy through their bodies. Then there were others of us, boots on ground, teaching the humans how to do sound thought levitation of these megalithic stones. So I was getting to see this whole thing play out. And, you know, the pyramids and all the structures are much more ancient than what traditional archaeologists will allow to be. But so seeing that, and then we had another experiment going on. So we had this Earth experiment where we were directly teaching the humans how to do this. Then we had another experiment where we were on a similar kind of planet. We were sending the sound frequency to upgrade those beings, but we were not teaching them anything. We were just letting them evolve naturally. And the interesting thing between, and this brings in my science, like I have so many sciencey ET lives, which is why I'm also a scientist in this life. But the experiment, the ones that we left alone without teaching, ended up staying really harmonious with their environment. If you think of the beings in the Avatar movie, you know, how closely connected they are to life and to the land, that's what happened. So that group stayed completely harmonious, where the humans ended up, basically, it was prior to the destruction of Atlantis, but they ended up, you know, basically getting power hungry and having to fall again, cyclical. We've had a lot of cycles here on Earth of the falls. So that was very interesting to be able to see these structures up close and to understand how far away the Aswan Quarry is from where the Great Pyramids are in Cairo. It's 600 miles away, 900 kilometers away. And, you know, each of these stones, like maybe 80 tons. So pretty incredible to witness.
It is, and you're going to laugh at this, but I spent one of my birthdays in Egypt.
Okay.
And so it was, I always viewed it as, it's like one of the few places on Earth where you can literally walk in the footsteps of the ancients in present day. Yeah. And it's like you can still feel like the pharaohs are there, the gods are there, and everything is still there as if it was happening now, because it's so untouched and it's so like preserved in such a way that it's like you literally are like, you step on a grain of sand and it's like Pharaoh probably stepped on this grain of sand.
Yeah. Well, and being here in Hawaii it's kind of similar to being in Egypt or Peru and seeing this, because the Hawaiian Islands and all the islands in the Pacific are the mountain remnants of the Lemurian continent. And, you know, do you know much about Lemuria?
I do, and actually I took a cruise to to Hawaii, and had a really magical, and when I say magical, I mean with the K, not the C, experience there.
Well, and so I think, like, for me, you know, I do have lives in Lemuria, and those people who are called to visit regularly to the Hawaiian Islands or who are called to move here have this Lemurian connection as well. And we all have Pleiadian connection, but that is the primary energy, the Pleiadian energy, the Syrian energy with the dolphins and the whales, as well as there's big Arcturian energy here in Hawaii too. And so that's another reason why I knew I was called to be here on the island. And then my whole dragon team is here inside of the volcanoes. And I have a connection with the Agarthans, the inner earth beings. There are tunnels. There's a tunnel that goes directly here from the Big Island to Mount Shasta. But we also have a lot of the transmedium craft activity here in the islands where the ships are coming in and out of the water. And I think that a lot of those craft that are doing that are our inner earth friends, counterparts coming to check the surface. So it's an interesting realization to have that I'm connected to all this. And a lot of people are connected, they just don't remember, or they're not ready to remember.
Or I wonder if they do, but their work is keeping them somewhere else.
Yeah.
To balance, to share the energy from there to pinpoint other locations.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, people are being placed in all these different locations around the world and some people don't even need to know that they're here to help that balance or help the shift. Just their physical presence and their energetic presence, they're doing their work without even knowing that they're doing their work.
Now, earlier when we were talking about, you being in Hawaii, you were mentioning each of the islands has their own energy. And my experience happened on Maui. So I'm curious what you feel the energy of Maui is.
So Maui is the sacral center, Big Island's root chakra. Maui has more of that gentleness about it, and it's also got a very kind of sexual energy built into it, where like Hawaii is the crown chakra, and Oahu would be the solar plexus, the power seat.
Interesting, because when I mentioned my magical experience, it was I had leg surgery done because I broke a bone on some stairs, and I got through PT to go to Hawaii literally like almost like a week, give or take moment. And so I was on crutches and I went to do snuba in Maui, which is snorkel and scuba combined. Mm-hmm. And I get on the boat and I don't have my crutches with me because I was like, I'm not taking them on a boat. I left them on the ship. And I hear the person who's running this tour saying, okay, if you've had surgery in the last 6 months, you can't get in the water. And I was like, I have to get in the water.
Yeah.
What do you mean I can't get in the water? And all of a sudden, this guy whispers into my ear, don't worry about it. I got you. Stick with me. And so we kept it quiet that I had the surgery. And he helps me. And I get to the bottom of the bay. And I feel, I pick up the dirt that's at the bottom of the bay and watch it sit through my hand. And my thoughts are of, wow, I wonder when the last time this grain of sand was touched by the heat of the sun and who was there. And then I was like, okay, we got to go. And so I float back up and I thank the gentleman for helping me out and everything. And long story short is when we got to where we were on the ship going to go to dinner, I wasn't on my crutches anymore. I was walking totally fine. And it's like something in the Bay of Maui like reset my leg and whole body to pre-surgery.
Okay, well, salt water, ocean water, very healing. But again, our oceans around here, they are filled with the cetaceans, the whales and the dolphins. And they are very Syrian. They come from Sirius and very healing, like deeply healing. And so where the Arcturians primarily work on the emotional kind of healing, the Syrians really help with the physical healing in a big way. So that's what you got to experience.
Yeah, I'm grateful for it, and it's like forever ingrained in my head, and it's like I'll never forget that moment.
Pretty incredible story. Yeah. Well, and I know that by me being here on the island, and I would take my best friend was here for 3 weeks after my husband passed to help me with everything and be my like boundary keeper, my gatekeeper for people. And we went to the beach every day for that healing. You know, feet and toes in the sand, body in the salt water, and just allowing the magic of the island and the water to work on me.
That's really cool that you had a friend that was able to do that with you and to give you that gift. And talking about friends, I feel like we would be remiss if we didn't mention your friend behind you.
Ah, back here. Yes, so I have a trio of these because they do tend to come in threes, the Zetas, when they visit people. So this is Zanaya, and then I have Elza and Evie currently out in the courtyard. Zanaya lives out in the courtyard with them. They're like in each corner, protecting my precious space. But I am what the Zetas are one of the groups that I am connected with as well. And I know a lot of people have some judgment or fear about the Zetas, and there's no reason to. Like, if anyone has had any experiences where they feel like they've been taken by them, or maybe their eggs or sperm have been taken, it's all a soul contract agreement. And I myself know that I'm part of that Zeta human hybrid program. I have 12 hybrid children somewhere out there in space. I haven't met them physically yet, but at some point soon that's going to happen. And I know that my Zeta life, I would have been like, yep, sign me up to be human. Let's go and do this. I'll be part of that.
And I wonder how many are like, I'll sign up for that, and then they spend like a year or two here, and they're like, can I unsign up for this?
Right.
This is not what I thought this was going to look like.
Well, I think a lot of us, even if it's just Earth humans that we're experiencing, we come in, we're like, yeah, let's sign up for all these hard lessons because Earth school is like the PhD level of school. And so, like, I know for me, a lot of hard lessons in this life that I chose to come here to work through. And I know that I did that so that I could transmute it, gain the wisdom, and then teach about it and show others. And there are others of my friends that have done that as well. But people who are going through really, really hard times, it's like, I feel for you. I now have the empathy for you being in that situation, and you're never stuck. Like, you can always change the situation.
That's very true. And I often hear of like people talking about, yeah, the star beings are coming to visit us here for vacation and everything. And I'm like, yeah, I can think of a few other planets that probably would be a lot higher on the list of vacationing spots than here.
Well, actually, in my Connection to the Cosmos book, I have a chapter about me called Being a Tourist Here on Planet Earth. And so, like, I know I signed up here to travel. I've been to all the continents except for Antarctica, to experience all these different cultures. I came in to experience the beautiful biodiversity of animal life and tree life here on the planet. And to eat the yummy foods and drink the yummy things, and even the sexual experiences, like this full physical body, because most of these ETs that I have experienced as a being, they're in the non-physical realm. They don't have the same kinds of physical bodies and experiences. And so it's like, okay, yeah, let me come here to Earth and experience the magic of it, as well as the
Right.
heart.
Oh, yeah. And we're actually approaching the hour mark. Do you have time for a few more questions or?
I certainly do.
So one of the questions I have is, and it comes from your bio,
Okay.
and I'm curious about because it's something that's being brought up a lot right now, and that is that you say you're guided to awaken and embody 5D consciousness. So
Mhm.
how does that work per se, and what does it look like?
Okay. So if we think about, so again, I'm almost 53. So in my almost 53 years of life, Earth is really dense. We are typically operating in a third, fourth dimensional reality called third density. And in that third density, polarity is one of the laws. And so we experience the good, the bad, the positive, the negative, the black, the white. Now, when we start shifting into fifth dimensional reality in a higher vibration, then polarity ceases to exist. Love becomes the basis of everything, and we understand that we are all one, we are all connected. Now, my life, since I was 13, so almost 40 years, I have been in and out of my spiritual journey of learning how to understand these concepts, to keep my vibration as high as possible. That doesn't mean I've had some really hard things, 2 divorces, one very abusive husband. I've had bankruptcy. I've had all those career changes. Like I've experienced a lot. And though every time I rebuild and get myself out of it, I become lighter and lighter in vibration. And so what, again, 4.5 years ago, when my ETs were like, okay, you need to no longer be in that pendulum swing of I'm right, you're wrong kind of judgment, and just really be neutral, see things from a higher perspective, understand that it's both sides of the coin and all perspectives are real for those people experiencing them, and to maintain my own environment. So if I am elevating myself to be operating more in a state of joy, following my passion, being in play, coming from love, that is fifth dimensional reality. That is 5D consciousness. That's where we have compassion for others. We understand abundance is all around us, we don't need to compete. It's all about collaboration, coming together. And so that ultimately is what I'm here to help be a bridge to. That's also where full open galactic contact exists as well. Now, it can happen without that, but the ETs that really want to be here among us are these slightly higher vibrational ETs. They want us to know they're there, and they want us to be part of the greater galactic community, more so than just Earth. And so there is a shift that is happening where there are people like me that are being the light, leading the way, teaching how to clear out the denser energies from one's own personal body. Because as long as we stay in judgment of ourselves, then we're going to judge other people. We can't, that's just what happens, because people are mirrors for us. So if we don't like something in someone, it's because there's something inside of us that we're not liking. And so the more that we can heal that, clear that, then we can be lighter vibration and come from that place of love. And I know that that has been my full experience over this practicing of it for the last really 4.5 years.
So, in your opinion, let's say tomorrow we wake up in the 5D and we have that mindset. Are we forever in that mindset, or can
Not
we fall back
necessarily.
into the 3D?
Yeah, it's a practice, especially if there's still a lot of heaviness or shadows within someone, and they still get triggered heavily by other people, then it's very easy for them to dip back down, because it is like this continual like up and down, and that really the practice becomes holding that higher frequency longer and longer and longer, and holding the focus, the emotions in that higher frequency. And then at some point, then it's really fully anchored, fully embodied in that person. And people will start falling away from you when you start operating in higher frequency reality. I know for some people, they don't want to lose their people, and it's a choice. For me, even losing my husband, that was a change in frequency. Like, he couldn't hang with my energy anymore. And I knew it, but he came from the other side through probably 8 different mediums telling me the same thing. And none of them knew each other. So it was like, he really wanted to get that through. Like, you were elevating and I was keeping you back, and I couldn't do that to you anymore.
And, that raises an interesting question, too. And actually, I got 2 questions about that for you. First one is, those people who are toting and saying, once we hit 5D, you're untouchable by anybody else. So that's, I'm guessing from what you're describing, is an illusion. But then also, my question is like you're saying, you're in a relationship and you make the choice to go 5D, and your partner struggles and doesn't make that. Are you able to stay together, or will that splinter and it's like no hard feelings about it, just goes?
So it's all frequency specific, like attracts like. And so if someone is really deep on that spiritual path and really committed to keeping that frequency elevated, if the other one isn't willing to be there, it's not going to even necessarily be a conscious falling apart. It's just a natural falling apart. And I know, and again, like, I know that can be very hard for people to hear. I have elevated or changed. I'll just say change, because elevation seems like a judgment, like it's better. It's just a change of energy. So I have had friends fall away. I've had family fall away, my husband fall away. And so I have come to, like, I am the common denominator in this life. I'm the only one who's going to always be here for me, right? Because we have a lot of people checking out, like dying right now. We're going to have even more in the next few years of people who don't want to play in Earth School anymore, and so either they'll create diseases, they'll create scenarios where they die. And so we're going to be losing people in those ways. But then people who, again, aren't frequency specific, it's just, they can't hang in the same energy. Like, if they're too different, it just won't happen.
Well, then in my other question is say both of you are at the same level and shifting and changing and doing all the work and everything. And I've heard a lot of people say, it's like we're going to be going home. And so my question is, like, say, you're married and you're Arcturian hybrid and Syrian hybrid. Well, if you're going home, does that mean splitting up that marriage and everybody goes back to their home worlds? Or is there like a choice where you can go and be with the other person?
Well, here's the thing that I think people either don't understand or forget, because we come here to forget, to then remember, is that we are all from source. That ultimately is our home. And we are all one. We are all connected always. And so when, let's say, this physical body of Lisa passes, well, my soul still is there. My energy is there. And then there are choices that get to be made of, like, okay, which life what kind of life do I want to experience next? Or do I want to do some non-incarnated school first? But again, everything is existing simultaneously. And so we are spirits, and this is like a dream. This reality is a dream. It's actually not real. These are our avatars. We're playing a video game.
So that actually brings up an interesting question of, if we're able to shift timelines, if, say, I wake up tomorrow and it's my last day on in this world, can I jump when I pass to another timeline and keep going? Or do all timelines cease and start over from 0 point?
Okay. That is a good question, but they're all existing, so it's so you may choose to be born, physically born again, and then you keep going on whatever mission, whatever journey your soul is on. But some people also choose to, they don't want to go through that birth process, and they walk in to a body that's already existing. So they have a soul exchange within a physical body. And I know a few walk-ins now that I have met, where that old soul that was born into the body, they were like done. And so then this other soul was like, well, I'll take over for you. And when that happens, though, their life changes drastically, because that new soul energy has a new mission. And so like all things are possible, Michael.
Because I was just thinking of it going, like, they talk about, like, going to the Star Trek future, and it's like, man, working towards that. And if I got cut short of that, I'd be like, I don't want to start over as a little kid and be like, have to grow up to reach that point, because I'm at the pinnacle now. It's like, I would want to be like, okay, now at this pinnacle point going forward, I'm like, I'll just jack into that timeline where I'm still the same age and keep going to get that point. And I was like,
I mean, or you could choose a life where that Star Trek future is already existing. Again, all timelines are existing. There is no past, there is no future. So even though we call it Star Trek future, it's existing.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of what you and your team decide after this body perishes.
Yeah, and talking about how everything is at the same time, it's like, I don't know if you've heard, like, where they say, like, Star Wars is our story of our past. And so a friend of mine put out a meme, and sorry if I'm mispronouncing it, that's just the way my mind says it, but where he had on the top and said, Star Wars is our past, and then underneath it goes, Star Trek is our future. And I was like, it's kind of funny, because we're taught, like, society is like, oh, if you like Star Wars, you can't like Star Trek. And if you like Star Trek, you can't like Star Wars. And it's like, if they're both the same timeline history, what's the big scare of having us being okay with both of those?
I never got that. So my mother, she was the Star Wars mom. Like, she was obsessed. My dad was obsessed with Star Trek. Now, I didn't grow up with my dad. They divorced when I was 2, but I got exposed to both. And both are true. So Star Wars is based on real stuff that happened in our galaxy, known as the Orion Wars. And, if we have time, I would love to share this very real story about, so me as Arcturian Uluru that I was telling you about earlier, that life was during the time of the Orion Wars. And I was a master healer. And back November of last year, I was on an ET diplomacy conference as a speaker. And there was a lady who was a speaker who invited me to be on 2 of her podcasts. One co-hosted, one solo. I was on the solo one first, then I was on the co-hosted one. Her co-host had never met me, knew nothing about me whatsoever. But she remembers her life during the time of the Orion Wars, and she was a Lyran from Lyra constellation, one of the cat humanoids. And so she remembers her full life. She wrote a book about it. But in the middle of the podcast, she recognizes me. She's like, I know you. She's like, you're Arcturian. I said, yeah. She said, you're a healer. I said, yeah. She said, I wrote about you in my book. And so after the show, she sends me her book, and I'm getting to the part where she's writing about me. And I thought it was going to be really generic, like, oh, some Arcturian healer. But no, it's very specific. Master healer, Arcturian Uluru. And with what my role was, you know, in the book and with her. And so, again, not only did I have my own validation knowing I am Arcturian Uluru, but then here's someone who's never met me, who's writing about me, who remembers it all too. And so it's kind of crazy because, again, these parallel lives, we think of it as past, but it's really not. It's parallel. And so these lives are now bleeding into this Earth life. And what's even more fascinating is that her co-host is also in the book, and they were best friends in the book. They're best friends in this life. She was a Pleiadian. And then they've met other people that Jen wrote about in her book as well. And one of my friends here in Hawaii, he's in the book as well. And they live in Canada. Like, they've never met him. So, but I showed them a picture of him. I'm like, just, hey, do you recognize this energy at all? And she's like, oh, that's Vale Wren. So you can't make this stuff up. It's kind of crazy.
No, I love those synchronicities and how that happens. And, you know, I'm a firm believer, too, of, you know, Star Wars being the Orion Wars, and that Star Trek is our so-called disclosure in full effect because we're interacting with other races. And
that's what I was talking about when we are now part of the greater galactic community. And that's going to happen in our lifetime. It's very exciting. And that's also why I'm here to be a Galactic Ambassador.
And, you know, what's interesting about it is, you know, I've been thinking about and trying to word it into a question as we're talking. You know, you talk about jumping timelines so fast and, you know, just by choice, which I love how that, you know, that's how it happens. But is the reason why there are so many people who are like deja vu is prevalent for them, and other people are like Mandela effects are prevalent for them, and there are some that have both deja vu and Mandela effects.
It's all timeline jumping.
Yeah. And so the people who are not experiencing that or aware of it, is that because they are set in their timeline and they're just going along their timeline and not needing to change?
Some people are fully on autopilot in this life. They are checked out. No, and again, no judgment on that. That's what they're here to do. But those of us who have come here to learn, or not learn, it's just a remembering, actually. All that information is still there, and all the answers lie within us. But we're just here to remember who we really are, because we have forgotten. And so some people are here to remember that. And then others, it's not their time. Their soul's on a different journey. And again, no right or wrong, good or bad.
Well, very cool. And I feel like we could keep talking and keep sharing more, but I'm like, there's so much more to talk about that I'm like, I would hate to start a new topic and then we're like, gotta cut it short for time.
I know. Well, I have a free gift I would love to share with your audience, if that's okay.
Be my guest.
Okay, so as part of really wanting to help Earth and humanity shift to this higher vibrational reality, I've created a free multidimensional awakening kit, which is 5 different high vibe meditative journeys to help clear away some of this stuckness to connect with your higher self and to really start creating your highest timeline. So I've got 5 meditations, and then I have an ascension workbook that goes with that. And it's on my website, awakenactivatenow.com. So the multidimensional awakening kit, awakenactivatenow.com.
Okay, I hope I typed that link up right.
Yeah, looks good. Yes. Yep. And then if anyone is ever coming to the Big Island of Hawaii, then come on one of my Big Island UFO tours, and you will see the night sky in a whole new way.
Well, thank you for that, and I appreciate that. That is, wow, I was not expecting that, so thank you for that. And before we go, there's one thing, we talk about, like you were saying, guided to do things. Well, lately this has been something I've been guided to, and I find it's really powerful because it's authentic and from my energy to you, and that is thank you for your service to humanity and all that you're doing.
Well, I received that, and I want to honor you too. Thank you for having these platforms and your book and all the things that you are doing.
Yes, and hopefully we can have you back on and we can talk some more about some more stuff that's going on.
Yeah, I would love that.
And so before I sign out and do the outro, where can people find your books and find you if they want to get involved?
Okay, well, so all of my books are available on Amazon. So if you live worldwide, you can access any of them. And my author name, it's not Dr. Lisa Thompson, it's Lisa Thompson, PhD. But there, my main website where all my services are located. You can also buy books off my website and my Oracle card decks. I've got 10 different decks. That is, you can either go to mysticmanta.com or drlisajthompson.com. And then I am on Facebook and Instagram. My Instagram is galactic_Dr. Lisa Thompson. And then I also have BigIslandUFOtours.com.
Very cool. And most of these, I believe you sent me, and so they're in the description. Yeah. So I put a couple up, so if hopefully people will come and check it out. And
beautiful. And then if anyone is already a healer or wants to be a healer, then I do have my Infinity Healing Method certification program coming up, again, starting at the end of October.
Very cool. And anything else upcoming that you want to promote real quick?
Oh, just November 2nd will be the birth of the new book, Through Loss into Light, A Journey of Grief, Healing, and the Love That Remains. And stay tuned for a lot more to come. I've got a lot of stuff that are in the works that I'm really excited about.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all of this with us and for coming on to this show, because I know, being strangers before we started talking and only talking on Facebook Messenger, it's a big risk to come on shows because you don't know what's going to happen. So thank you for trusting me and being open to being a guest.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
And what is it? Aloha is...
Aloha, yeah.
I was trying to remember because I know it means a lot of things, but I was like, wait, is that one
Hello
of them?
And goodbye. And then mahalo is thank you. So mahalo for having me, Michael.
Mahalo for coming on. And thank you. And I want to just say to everyone, have a wonderful night. And thank you all for watching. And we will see you all in the next adventure. Good night, everyone.